Welcome to the Impact My Life podcast, where we talk about self-defense for life. This week's episode, we're brought on Jon Bidwell, who's one of my good friends. He's kind of a perfect guest for this type of podcast because not only has he been a martial arts student for how many years?
39.
39 years.
39.
Getting up there.
Well,
How have you been training for 39 years if you're only 29?
I'm actually only 25.
Oh,
so,
gotcha.
Yeah,
The math gets a little fuzzy.
Yeah, it's complicated. Martial arts math doesn't work.
But besides being a martial arts student for 39 years, he's also been an instructor and also a parent of black belt children. So I thought he'd be a perfect guest to come on. I'd like to start out with how we met. Evidently, we trained when we were kids together, but I never really realized who he was, and he didn't realize who I was because we're a few years difference in age.
Right.
But my first memory of you, as before we became friends, was they used to do these fight nights at Lemoyne College. And at Lemoyne College, I'd just come back from Chicago. I'd lived in Chicago for a few years, and it was my first introduction back into the schools. And they did this fight night, full contact Muay Thai fights and kickboxing fights, and they did a demonstration at the intermission. And Master Bidwell came in, and Master Bidwell was in different shape at that time.
I was a shape, for sure.
Yes, he was a shape, and he came in, and he's kicking straight up and moving all over, and my first thought was, man, that big kid can kick. And then, lo and behold, we ended up working together and becoming great friends. Yeah. And I'm trying to remember what year that was.
So when I came to DeWitt, it was 2006. It was the end of April, beginning of May. But I think we had started training, like sparring and jiu-jitsu, probably a year or two prior to that.
Gotcha.
So
the demo year was maybe 2002-ish?
I would say, yeah, because I was at Lemoyne at the time, so it was right around there. And I graduated in, 04. So I think it was a couple years before that, yeah.
I know you love that quote, though. Man, that big kid can kick.
Yeah. So my first time remembering you.
Oh, no.
Yeah, this was good, too, was the second Liverpool dojo where hats used to be.
Yeah.
And I don't even think I was in class. I think my father must have dropped us off and hadn't picked me up yet or something like that. And so I was just watching the older kids spar. And I just remember you sparring someone, saying, hold on a second, going into the restroom and coming back out, your tooth had gone through your lip.
Oh, yeah, Jason Silveski.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. So that was the first time I remember seeing you.
Yeah.
But then after that, I think the only memories I have are from like black belt spectaculars.
Yeah.
And then when I got on staff over at the Clay School, then sparring with you, and that was the first time I had any interaction with you in probably 20 plus years or something like that. So yeah, it's kind of funny how that worked out.
How did you originally get started? We've never talked about origin stories, like how, we've known each other a long time. How did you get started in the martial arts?
So I came from a planet far away, and I was energized by the sun. No.
It's called Palermo.
It is. And for those of you who don't know, that does exist. It's in southern Oswego County. I was very shy and very small, and my father had always wanted to do martial arts, and he happened to see an advertisement in the newspaper, and he made an appointment to go and asked if he could bring me with him. So they had said yes, but come to find out, they actually didn't want to let anyone join who was, I want to say, under 7 or 8 years old at the time. Mm-hmm. I don't remember, but they let me do the intro lesson with him. So it was just he and I and a couple instructors taking turns, and when they had us doing the stretches, they had, hands on the ground, just let your feet keep going until you can't anymore. And I just dropped into a full split. I had never done it before. It was brand new to me. They were very impressed, and they decided, well, we'll give it a try. So they each picked me up by a foot and carried me around for a minute just to see if they could. And yeah,
they let you join.
They decided that they would let me join at that point. So apparently being able to do a split, and I had no idea I could do, was good enough for them. So
wow.
Yeah. Talk about weird, kind of freakish things that you didn't know you were able to do, and because you could do that, they let you, join, and it's something you're still doing almost 40 years later. So yeah. Thank you, flexibility.
Yeah, I think back to when I started. It wasn't even my idea. It was my friend Brian, who's a lifelong friend. Just talked to him on Sunday, and he just saw the Karate Kid, and he said, "We're going to do martial arts." And so we tried one time at a Okinawan style dojo where they didn't speak much English and all the commands were in, Okinawan, and it wasn't very much fun. We sat in horse stances, for minutes at a time, and it just wasn't very exciting. So we quit after a week, and then he was very determined because he's a determined guy, and so we joined up again, and then the rest is history. So, so thankfully we gave it a second shot. Otherwise, my life would be a very different.
Yeah, I know, and that's kind of what I was getting at. Is like, I just think back now, like, what if I didn't have the flexibility? And they just decided, you can't do it. I mean, I'm sure that at some point I would have done it because my dad was going to do it regardless. But would it have been the same? Started different times.
Yeah.
You got a different trajectory. So, yeah, I've thought about that a few times. Now, where was this Okinawan school?
As per most parents, it was the closest one to our house because Brian lived about 10 houses down from me, maybe 15 houses. So our moms decided to carpool to save the driving and just choose the closest place. So our eventual school that we grew up at was the second closest school, which happened to be
not that far.
No, but they wanted convenience.
I mean,
so.
You're talking maybe 3 miles
yes.
from where you were?
Yes. But I mean, that was pre-internet, so there's no research and Google reviews, and people at that time, it wasn't as ubiquitous, so people didn't go and research different places. It was just, okay, you want to do this, it's right there.
Yeah. Driving by, or you just happened to see it in the. It
was right by the Ground Round restaurant, so I think that was probably close by. So
you go do some Okinawan karate and then have some good American ground round.
Yes.
No, thanks.
Now thinking back, how do you feel like the martial arts classroom, like the martial arts activity has changed, the sport has changed, since we started to now?
Wow. I think that it was a lot more militaristic back then when we started. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I think it's a great thing. But I think that over the years, it's definitely lightened up in that regard. Again, I don't think that's a bad thing. I just think it's two different approaches, where I think back then martial arts in America, especially for kids, was so brand new. Kids didn't do martial arts for a long time. And so I think back then, establishing something that you're going to let kids do that's like that, it was all based in discipline. So I think that they felt like you needed to have that militaristic take on it. I just think that over time it's naturally evolved to where, instructors have realized, hey, we don't have to be yelling and, demanding out of people the way that we used to be. Demanding, yes, but I guess in a nicer way. So I just think that that's probably the biggest thing I've noticed. It's less like, not angry, but it's less intense all the time.
Yeah, I think back to when we were growing up and they had things called body punishment where you would sit there in a stance and they would punch and kick you to develop mental and physical conditioning. And, that went all the way up through, I think, 3rd-degree black belt, so that was into the 90s that they were doing that, or laying, having us lay and do, with our legs straight out and walking across our stomachs, that type of thing. So I think the martial arts traditionally has always developed resilience and grit, but I think over the years we've kind of had to change like the way that we develop that resilience and grit in people. So now it's, instead of, okay, let's punch and kick kids, now it's, okay, let's teach them failure as your friend. Let's teach them that.
We did not punch and kick kids to abuse them.
No, but it was, well, I mean, some of the instructors.
Some of them definitely took advantage.
But
I
think now, I think you're right. It's less angry, it's more to where more people can be successful in it, and we can still get resilience and grit out of it, by developing mental toughness through a lot of repetition, through physical conditioning, through challenges, through failing sometimes, because not giving a participation trophy, you're not going to necessarily always get the belt. I think that the old ways were great, but I think we've kind of matured a little bit in our approach.
A couple things that you hit on there. One, if you think back, you said, we lay on the ground for core work and they would, walk across us. One of the other things that they did too is they were very adamant about your flexibility. So even if you didn't have natural flexibility, they wanted you to be able to get as close to a split as you could, have decent kicking height. So we would have to partner stretch. And I'm sure you remember, if you were doing a butterfly stretch, someone was standing on your knees, if you could get them close enough to the ground, stuff like that, or you got both feet out straight, they're pushing on your low back, trying to get you to be able to touch your toes, or they come around the front, they hold your hands and pull as their feet are pushing against your legs, trying to make you do a split. We don't necessarily do that stuff anymore. I see why we did it.
Yeah.
But I also I look at how do you take someone who, in my father and I have talked about this. There were people when we started, and my dad got his black belt in 91? Is that when you guys tested? Yes. So he got his black belt in 91.
Were we in the same test?
I believe so. December 7th,
Pearl
Harbor.
Yeah. Pearl Harbor 50th anniversary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he got to his black belt, and there were people who had already been, back then, Brown 3, what we call high red belt now. They were Brown 3 when we started, still had not become black belts. We started in 1986. That's 5 years, 5.5 years.
Yeah.
And they were great martial artists, but the problem was their flexibility wasn't as great as it could have been. And here's the kicker. What did we used to have to do for our cardio? 3-mile run. Now, we kind of lucked out. I say lucked in air quotes, but we had to do it under 24. But back then,
oh no, my first crew is 21.
So you did have to do it.
And he told me 21 is for normal people. You got to be under 20. So
Yeah.
I was in the 17, 18 range.
So if you think
Not
about
anymore.
it, the way that it was, I mean, yes, it did produce quality black belts, quality martial artists, and people who were very fit, which is important, especially if you got to defend yourself. That adrenaline kicks in, and if you're out of shape, you're out of luck. But you and I talked about this. God, I want to say that for the first time, it was not even a decade ago, maybe. We've had people come through the dojo who they put in the effort. On the floor, they're in good shape. They know the material. They're a good martial artist, but they could not get the run. And at that point, we knocked it down to 2 miles under 16 minutes. So we had these people who are good martial artists. They just couldn't do it back then. So I think the way that it's done now, where yes, the running is part of the requirement, but it's not as stringent, and then adding in the other fitness factors, and it's kind of a scale. I think doing it that way permits people who are good, talented martial artists to become black belts who otherwise wouldn't have been able to because, God forbid, they've got a bad knee or a bad hip and they can't do the running. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love running. I'm all about cardio, but not everyone is. And being a good runner does not make you a good martial artist or black belt,
And my take on it was the same thing. You have somebody that can run fast, but they can't do push-ups or sit-ups, and they die during class when they're working out. And then the other part of it, too, is you want this to be a lifelong endeavor. This is one of the rare sports. Elio Gracie was grappling into his 90s. I mean, this is one of those rare sports that is a lifelong activity, a lifelong pursuit. And to be kind of cheated out of it, to get graded out of it because you can't run, it's not a black belt in running. So
right.
I do like the fact that we're a little bit more fair in our approach in terms of fitness, where you don't have to be Navy SEALs.
No. And my thought on that is I feel if you're going to be a black belt, you should have to earn that black belt.
Yeah.
But I also am of the mindset that if it's going to destroy your body to get there, there's probably something that can be changed.
Yeah.
And I think the running, because if you think about it, if you've got to run 3 miles under 24 minutes, how many days a week were you running?
Yeah.
Realistically.
Yeah.
Or maybe not us, but someone who's not an avid athlete, someone who's not a runner, they're going to be running 5, 6, 7 days a week. Because if they're only running on qualification days, on Saturdays, it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
So they're out there. Let's say you're 50 years old. You've never done anything in your life physical. You want to get a black belt. You go in, you're learning, you're doing well. You've got great technique, and you go out there, and you've got to be able to run 3 miles under 24 minutes. And you try day after day, week after week, month after month. And I've seen it. People just get discouraged. They're gone. I've gone out and tried to run with some of these people to help them. It's not that they're not trying. It's not that they're in bad shape, because you watch them on the floor, they're in better shape than some of the people who are good runners.
Yeah.
They just could not run. And to not get a black belt because you couldn't run, it's a little suspicious to me.
It's a little tough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Going back down memory lane, one of the things that has been part of the martial arts forever is life skill, character education, and a lot of it is just kind of implicit in the practice itself. Training hard, develops toughness. Learning katas develops concentration. You could go on, but we did have some like great messages growing up. What was one of your favorite messages growing up? I know mine, but so if you steal mine,
I don't think I'm gonna steal yours.
No, okay.
No. It's gonna sound really dumb. So I don't know why, but my parents and one of our instructors thought it'd be a great idea to have maybe I was 7 at the time, I don't know, 6 or 7-year-old, go home, pop a cassette tape in, and listen to a personal self-development tape.
Okay.
Yep. And it was on Stinkin' Thinkin'.
Oh,
Yeah,
I forgot about that one.
yeah.
Stinkin' Thinkin'.
Had nothing to do with my attitude. Had nothing to do with like anything martial arts related. They just thought it'd be a good idea because I was one of the younger ones, and kids tend to quit when things get tough. And it's so dumb to look back on and think, you gave this to a 6-year-old, and my parents made me sit on my bunk bed and listen.
Who created it?
I don't know who created it.
Because I remember them talking about it when we were kids, but I don't know where the origin of that phrase was.
And I know, and it's weird because now that you mention it, I'm going to go and I'm going to look it up when we're done.
Yeah.
If I had my phone right here, I'd probably be doing it while we were talking. But
Danny was Jamie. We would have the answers.
Yeah, that's true. But I don't know. Something about that stuck out because when you're training, whether it's in the dojo, whether you're out running by yourself with a group, I can remember going for my 3rd degree black belt. So this would have been summer 2003. I pulled a bunch of muscles in my neck and my upper back, and it was the day before the last pre-exam. So it was Friday night, Saturday morning, plus a run. And I was in so much pain, and I couldn't help but think, just quit. Not quit like karate, but quit the cycle. Just, do it next time. It's not worth it. And then I was like, why would I do that? Because as you know, that was just after my pleasantly plump days.
Yes.
So I had gone through all that work to lose.
Sturdy.
Yeah, I want to say I lost 40 pounds. I graduated for 3rd degree in August of 2003. So over the course of 6, 7, 8 months, I lost about 40 pounds just through eating better, taking my training more seriously, and actually taking the running more seriously. And that's what I had to remind myself that day is it's really easy right now to feel sorry for myself and just say I'm not going to do it. Or I can suck it up and deal with it. So I took the painkiller that the doctor gave me. I didn't tell my wife until after the fact, and I went and I did it.
So Dad giving you stinking thinking when you were a kid paid off in adulthood.
Yeah, I guess so.
I hope he hears that.
Oh,
my
I hope
favorite,
he doesn't.
my favorite growing up, and you can probably guess, the one kids always resonate with, and I just always thought was cool, was 10 feet tall and bulletproof. I don't know. I just thought that was a cool one, and it's an easy one for kids to visualize. Being 10 feet tall means that you can kind of look past what's happening in your life right now and look at the long term, where your life is headed. So if you're having a rough day or a rough week or other kids are being mean to you, well, you're going places. Yep. And then bulletproof, whatever happens during your day or what people say to you, just bounces right off. And I think that one's a great one for kids, and it's always stuck with me.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, too, like, when you think about that, adults need that. And it's funny to think about talking to adults like that. But, yeah, you change up the words that you use. But it was something I had to use today. This morning, I received terrible news, and I was on my way out the door to work.
Yeah.
And my day could have been completely ruined. But, it took a little bit. I had to kind of process what I had learned. But
that brings back in another one, the shoe rack theory.
Yeah.
Being able to compartmentalize, leave it for a little bit and go on with your day. And,
That's actually probably what I should have told you was my favorite, because I've had to use that so many times. Mm-hmm. Even outside of the dojo, I've had to talk to people about that, whether it was at work, when I had my gym, explain to people like, listen, I understand you had a rough day, but you bring that energy in here, not only is it going to ruin your workout, but it's going to ruin everyone else's experience. It's going to make me kind of on edge because now I'm dealing with someone who's miserable and, short fuse. Like, so I think that's a really good one for anyone, kids or adults.
I think a lot of people need the shoe rack theory.
I think they do, most given days.
I was talking a couple weeks ago in our initial episode about Matt was interviewing me for the initial episode, and he asked me, why do you enjoy teaching the martial arts so much? And I told him it always amazes me every day. These classes I teach, everybody's doing the same routines, the same fitness, the same pad flow. They're all doing the same class, but they're all there for something different. In the kids' class, some might be there for better attention, some are there for confidence, some are there for physical fitness, and then the adults, they have all their reasons to be there too. But everybody's doing the same class, but they all get what they need out of it, and that's like it's always been kind of magical to me that you run this one class and you have 20 people in there and they're all getting exactly what they need out of it. And it's really fulfilling and, in a positive environment. For you, what do you enjoy about teaching so much?
There are a few things. I mean, the first and foremost is just being able to share something that I love doing. I mean, you don't do something for 40 years that you don't like,
Yeah.
So being able to give that to other people and see them enjoy it, that's huge. But I like seeing the change. So when you get someone who starts, you see where they are and you watch them along that journey, that path to black belt and how they change. I don't know. I think it's awesome to see someone get their black belt. And I'm not just saying that as like a sales pitch. I think it's incredible because you see it in their face. You see it in their body language. Like, yes, to a lot of people, it's a folded up piece of fabric, that you undo and you put around your waist. But in that moment, especially to that person, whether it's a kid or an adult, you can see it.
They know what they went through to get it.
Yeah, I can remember a few instances, especially with kids and teenagers, where as they're putting the belt on, you just saw the change. They were so proud of themselves and they realized what they were able to accomplish. That, to me, is the most important part of teaching. So.
Yeah. I think what amazes me too is the change you see in them afterwards.
Yes.
Like they become the belt, and you'll see this kid that you're like, okay, they definitely earned it. They're deserving of it. They're a black belt. But then they hit another level a few weeks later and you're like, oh, well then.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you ever notice that, it's like all of a sudden, it's like this kid who was trying to do this jumping kick. They were struggling for 3 months, and then they get their black belt, and it's almost like a weight has been lifted off their shoulders, and there they are. They're doing it. You're like, what?
It's almost like they're Batman.
Yeah.
They put on the suit, and here we go. I'm a superhero now.
It's like, but I've been helping you with that for how long? And now all of a sudden you can do it, But it's nothing that we've done in that moment. They really, I feel like a weight has been lifted off their shoulders. It's like that's where it all starts.
Yeah.
It sounds cheesy, but I think black belt's where it starts. You see people who come in and they're just, nope, I've always had the goal. I want to get my black belt and then I'm done. And they do. Okay. But what did you do with that? But then when you see someone who keeps going, that's where you see the progress. That's where you see the improvements. And that's the fun part.
Yeah.
That's the really fun part.
Favorite age group to teach?
Oh, man.
You can turn it back on me afterwards.
Oh, I am.
Because mine's changed.
Yeah, I don't. You would think I'd say adults because that's what I did when I had the gym. But I would say that 8 to, 12, 13 years old before they go into the adult class because they finally get it. And you can see that they're starting to believe that they can do it.
Yeah.
And, I mean, obviously at that age, because they can do it, you're not having to repeat it as much. You can move through things a little bit quicker. Not to say I don't love working with the smaller kids, but I just feel like that age group it's a lot more productive at times, and to me, it keeps things interesting too.
Yeah.
What about you?
I would have said for a lot of years the exact same age group you did, but as my kids got older, I really enjoy Little Dragons now.
Really?
Because my kids are older, so when the 4 to 6 year olds come in, you never know what they're going to do, you never know what they're going to say, and they're just so much fun. So I get a really big kick out of them, and honestly, I enjoy our adults now too. When you were working with us, you mostly kind of took charge of the adults. So I wasn't as close to the adults back then.
Right.
You know, they're great people, but now because I teach all the adults, you know, and you develop so many friendships, and we hang out outside the dojo, and they're just like, we just have a really cool group of adults. Like they're just the nicest, most fun people. So, you know, whereas before I was always, you know, that same really developmental growth area, you know, because my kids are older, little dragons, I get a kick out of them. And then the adults, just because I'm spending more time with them, and they're just, we really the best adults. They're awesome.
Yeah. And that was something that you came to later. Like you said, when I was at the dojo full time, I really worked with the adults a lot and had gotten to befriend a lot of them, but you were really kind of hesitant to do that. And I think that came from above.
Yeah. Back in the day, we weren't allowed to be ourselves, you know, and it was always like, you know, authenticity, you know, has really become a more of a thing in the past, you know, however many years. And it's like, why do I have to be a separate person?
Right.
And so for me, it's like, once I became owner and, you know, had my own place, it's like, this just feels better, you know, to be myself.
And the people who were above us, you know, it was always the, you know, well, there's a loss of respect there, you know, they're hanging out with you, you're having dinner, you know, you become friendly, and then a little at a time you start to see that the respect, the protocol isn't there. And I got to be honest with you, and I know some of them are going to hear this, but I think maybe that's just because they didn't know how to have that balance. Whereas you and I had done other things in life. You know, we had experienced life outside of the martial arts, whether it was work or going to college or whatever it may be. So we understood that balance, you know, because we dealt with the management, we had dealt with people above us, we dealt with people who were below us, you know, so we were already able to do that. So it's nice when we're talking and I hear you talking about doing things with the adults, it's kind of funny to me because it's like, man, for so long you didn't do it.
Weren't allowed to.
But it's also nice because it's a different side of you that students didn't always get to see, that I think had they been able to 10 years ago, who knows? There could be students who just stopped training who, had they been able to see that side of you or gotten to know you on a more personal level, they'd be sticking around. One, because they enjoyed the martial arts, but two, they had that personal relationship with you. And you know, when you've got that personal relationship, you feel a little more obligated to stick things out, you know? So that's funny, though.
We're not
dragons.
the only, students aren't the only ones that learn and grow. You know, we're the same way.
I know.
You know, we're always evolving and growing and changing.
Yes, we are.
Why do you think martial arts is a great choice for adults? Because now we're kind of transitioning into, you know, as much as we joke about being 25 or 29, you know, why is it great for adults that are professionals, parents, getting a little bit older? You know, one of the topics I want to do in a few weeks for one of ours is aging athletically, and take some of our adults and say, you know, why is this working for you, and why would it work for other people? But what are your thoughts on that?
So I think one of the big things is you can take martial arts at your pace. If you're in class and you know that you have an injury, that's something that you can express to your instructor, and your instructor is not going to expect/demand that you still put in 110% effort. They're going to expect that you still put in 100% of what you can, but they're not going to demand that you do something that's going to cause further injury, or, you know, even a new injury because, you know, let's say your shoulder's hurt. Well, do this. Well, now your shoulder and this elbow are bad because you were compensating with the other arm. We're not going to do that. You know, I'm a perfect example. I've been struggling a lot with some issues to my lower back, and I can't do a lot of kicks right now, which, you know, it's driving me nuts. I like to kick, and it's impacted a lot of my training. But
pun not intended.
Pun definitely not intended. I do apologize, but no, I don't. I can still go to class. I can still use my upper body. I can hit pads. I can hit the heavy bag. I can still do push-ups. I can do ab work. I just can't really do a lot of kicking right now. Jump squats, probably not, you know, but regular squats I can do. So I think that because there's that leeway, you're not killing your body, and that's why I think it's better for people. I think if you try to go do CrossFit, if I went to try to do CrossFit right now, I'd blow out my back.
Yeah.
And who knows what the repercussions would be. I know that I would. Even
That was why I stopped it, because they wanted you to compete and do more and more weight. And after 6 months, I'm like, I have to teach every day.
Yep.
You know, I don't downhill ski or snowboard for a reason here. I'm definitely
Right.
not trying to be an Olympic lifter.
Right, or even something as simple as being a runner.
Yeah.
You know, you hurt your knee. Yeah, there are a lot of people who overcome that. They get back in there and they do it. But how many people really ever get back to where they were? You know, whereas I may not be kicking right now. That's temporary.
Yeah.
Once my back heals up and I'm done with the treatments I'm getting, am I going to be able to kick again? Yeah. But no one is demanding or expecting that I do those kicks right now, because they understand that there's an issue. And it's not as hard on your body. I mean, yeah, the kids, the teenagers, they're jumping and twisting and flipping like we used to do. But are we making adults do that? No. You know, it's not like you go into a class setting like, I feel bad ragging on it, but you go into a CrossFit gym and everyone's expected to do the same thing. Even if you're doing it at your own pace, you're still expected to do jumps. You're expected to lift heavy and go fast, you know? And I just don't see where that's conducive to having a healthy body.
Yeah.
So what about you?
Everything you said, obviously, but another couple reasons why I think martial arts is really good for adults. One is the camaraderie of it. Just being part. It's like an individual sport, but also a team sport. So I really like that aspect of it, and it becomes a social thing, and you get held accountable by your friends for not being in class. One of our adults brought her son to class yesterday, but showed up in jeans, and everybody harassed her because she wasn't taking class, and she's like, and so we were quizzing her on whether or not she had like the Chuck Norris action jeans, whether she could kick in them or not. But it was all in fun, but she's like, oh man, I wish I had my stuff, when she saw everybody come in, because one of our adults had her birthday. She's wearing the birthday belt. It's a neat environment. And then the other part of it is just the skill portion of it. Learning a skill. One of the funniest stories I know in recent years is one of our dads stopped me at a restaurant, and his sons had been training during the pandemic. If people don't know, we were teaching via Zoom. So we were doing classes on Zoom. So his sons would take class Saturday morning on Zoom on their deck. And so we would have to use the parents to help them with self-defense training. Well, he stopped me in a restaurant. This is probably 2 years later. The sons weren't even training anymore. They got really involved in scouting, and there's so many camp outs and stuff like that. So, they weren't training anymore. But he stopped me and he goes, "You saved my life." And I go, "I saved your life?" And he's a nice guy, accountant, professional. Yeah. And he said, I was in Dubai on vacation. And he goes, we were in a parking garage. Me and a friend were somewhere where we shouldn't have been. And two guys tried to rob us. He goes, they grabbed my shoulder. And he goes, I just stepped in, pinned their arm, elbowed him in the face. And then he goes, then I turned around and kneed the other guy. And he goes, my friend thought I was a superhero. He goes, I dropped two guys. And he goes, we ended up going home safe. And he goes, I never trained with you. He goes, but I practiced that move so many times with my son that it was just a reaction, and I just did it. And so learning a skill, and you don't want to walk around in fear, but
right.
Life being what it is, it's better to have the knowledge that you could do something, and also having that knowledge makes you walk around a little bit differently, so maybe you're less of a target for people. Yeah. So that one always sticks in my head too. Besides the camaraderie, is learning a useful skill is way more fun than a treadmill, and learning a useful skill might save your life, or at least the awareness might help you.
Yeah, and there are a couple things with the camaraderie. If you think about it, there are people who you meet when you're really young who you stay friends with, but how many people go through life and they really lose touch with the people they met early in life? In the martial arts, so I can't tell you how many people I still talk to because I met them in the martial arts, and because martial arts is still something I do and or they do as well. Doing
something tough together kind of creates a different level of bond.
Yeah. I will say, to get a little personal, is back in 2016 when I developed the depression. It just kind of came out of nowhere. Being at the dojo was one of the things that helped me through it. Not because anyone necessarily had the answer for me. It wasn't that at all. It was that I was around people. They were in a good mood. We were all doing something and having fun, and kind of like you said, you're going through something tough. It's not like we were just hanging out and, talking and, reading and talking about a book. We were going through tough classes, but at the end of class, you stand around, you talk, you've got that camaraderie, and that was something that definitely helped pull me out of it. Did it take a little bit? Of course, but that's one of the things that I know helped me. So I think, whether you're a kid.
So maybe the pull of the group and the activity got you there.
Yep.
And then at the end of it, the endorphins and all that
Sure.
getting released, helped
Yeah.
you feel good and get you through that
Yeah.
day.
I mean, I don't know how you can do something that you enjoy that much, and when you get done with it, feel bad. And again, depression is kind of a weird beast. It affects everyone differently. But I know that when I got in there and I trained, I felt better. I'm not saying that that's the therapy,
Yeah.
that was just something that helped me get through it. So, to get a little personal about it as an adult, I think that is definitely something that people can take.
The mental health side of it.
Yeah, the mental health side of it,
And
especially
that's
in
funny too,
2025.
Oh yeah, that's funny too, because it brings us back to another old saying that we've heard since we were kids. You'll never regret not going. Or you
Right.
never say, "I wish I didn't go" after you get done with class. You always
Right.
feel better after class,
Yeah. Well, it also goes back to
unless you get hurt,
right.
which is rare, fortunately.
Yeah. Favorite sayings though, I've seen one time and time again about, no one has ever said, "Gee, I'm glad my parents let me quit."
Yeah.
I know so many people who either they tell me, "Oh man, I regret quitting and not getting my black belt," or people I've known forever and they find out I'm still doing it. They're like, "Man, I always wish that I had done that." I'm like, "Well, you still can,"
Yeah.
but my point being is
We just had a mom test in the last graduation. One son went to college. Both of her sons were black belts. So I think maybe one was secondary.
Second, yep.
But her son graduated, went to college. The other son was in high school and getting into friends and activities and didn't need her as much. He got his black belt, and she said, "You know what?" She goes, "Before I'm 60, I want to get my black belt. I want to do this." And she did it. They ended up moving, not out of the area, but definitely to where it was like a 45-minute drive for her to get there, and she was still there, and she will go down in history as my happiest black belt candidate. It didn't matter what we did to her in class. Carolyn was just always smiling, and I would just laugh because she was just so happy to be testing and getting her black belt. And that's in her 50s.
She had trouble not smiling when she was getting her black belt.
Not that
I remember.
Not that she looks like she's in her mid to late 50s.
No.
Not to blow her in, but
No.
that was her goal, was to get it before she turned 60. And that woman came, saw, and
She's
did
not
it.
in her mid-50s, is she?
I don't know.
I mean,
I
I'm
just
not gonna
noticed
say
that. I
she
just
is.
remember when she first started, she said, "I want to get my black belt before I'm 60." So,
Well, she got it long before she's 60. We'll tell her that.
yeah. I guess she's only 29, just like us.
Yeah. She's still young.
All right, flip it over to kids now. What are some reasons why, especially in this day and age, why you think martial arts is a good choice for kids to do?
I am going to come right out and say I think that kids are way too attached to devices. And because of that, and I think adults are too, but I think that kids having devices all the time, they're losing a lot of things. They're losing the social aspect, and they're not developing the ability to pay attention to things long term. I know that with my kids, if they've been playing games too long, it's like they have a brain rot.
Yeah,
You try
it's
to have
garbage in, garbage
It
out. It's
is.
just like when our kids were young. I remember my son, if he ate Red 40, oh my gosh, if they ate junk food, that's what we got out of them was not good behavior, not good moods, et cetera, et cetera. And it's the same thing with games and video games and devices, and being on it too much. It's like you said, brain rot.
Yeah, and I think one of the other problems, and this is a big part of our society, is people just don't have that competitive drive. And I'm not saying everyone, because obviously you've got high-level people who still are competitive. But there are a lot of people who you would think are competitive, but when you really pay attention, they're not as competitive as they should be. And it's because things are so much easier to access now. I'll bash on participation trophies. I think that's a huge part of it. But I also think, too, that...
You're in good company. I was just listening to a podcast this morning when my friend Melissa just started one, and she had another friend named Morel on, and he was lamenting the participation trophy and, was relaying a story where he made his son cry because he didn't let him get his sixth place trophy at a martial arts tournament.
I mean, here's the thing is I'm okay with it, for really little kids, or special occasions,
But it goes back to what we said before. Failure is your friend, and it's okay to
Right.
learn because, in failure, you learn, how to
Absolutely.
grow. You learn how to overcome that, and you learn what you need to do differently the
Yep.
next time. And I think when you shelter kids from failing, they fail to learn those lessons, and then
Yeah.
it makes it tough for an adulthood.
Well, yeah, because then they don't take accountability either.
Yeah, because you're starting small when they're kids,
Yep.
and then when they're adults, the implications of it are way bigger of that
Yep.
failure.
Yep. And so I think that putting kids in an environment where, and I also don't subscribe to the only competition is yourself. I think that if you're never competing with someone else, you're going to fail. Because if all you're doing is trying to be better than you were yesterday, what are you actually aspiring to? I know that me personally, if I'm in class, I'm looking around. I'm focused on what I'm doing, but I'm noticing what other people are doing, and that's what's driving me. I want to do better than that person and that person and that person, not because I don't like them, because it drives me. I want to be better than everyone, and that may sound egotistical, but I also know I'm not better than everyone, but it's making me work harder. It's making me try harder. And I just think that that's pretty important. I think that oftentimes, my oldest just got his license, and
My youngest just got hers.
yeah, and do I think that he's a horrible driver? No. But do I think that he was ready to get his license? No. But did they give it to him? Yes, they did.
Problem
But-
for me with my kids is every time we go to take a driving test, I knew the DMV person that was giving them the test. So
Yeah.
they
But my point being is,
they might have gotten a little favorable treatment.
right. And again, my son is a good driver, but I don't think he was right. I mean, he won't even be 17 until September,
Yeah.
So, yes, he does it. Yes, he gets experience, but I think that they kind of gifted it to him because he did a decent enough job, especially compared to what the other people were doing. He was only out there for maybe 4 or 5 minutes.
Yeah.
What can you learn about what someone's doing in that period of time?
Well, some states do online driver's tests now, so
Yeah.
at least they took them out on the road.
But I also think that it teaches kids not to give up because things are going to get tough on your journey to black belt. I don't care what it is, whether you got to learn your self-defense, whether you got to learn one of your forms, whether you've got to run, you've got to do push-ups, you're going to fail at something, And I think that that's really important for the kids to learn. I know my oldest especially, he's the type who naturally, if he's not great at something right away, he doesn't want to do it. So that has helped him understand that you're not going to be good at this right away. That's okay.
That's the
You just
beauty
gotta
of the
keep going.
goal is that it's different for everybody, whether it's physical conditioning, paying attention to detail, actually learning the material, overall toughness, and for adults,
Yeah.
a lot of times schedule, just being able to prioritize and schedule something
Big
and
time.
not get distracted and not allow yourself to get, taken in other directions. But that's the beauty of it as a goal. It's kind of like the class, there's something for everybody in it.
Yeah, definitely.
The one thing that I really lament these days is specialization in sports and travel sports.
Oh.
I think it was wonderful when we grew up. You were able to try all different sports. I was just talking to a mom yesterday. She goes, I tried every sport when I was growing up. And she goes, I wasn't good at all of them or most of them. She goes, but I tried them all. and that's wonderful. And I feel like, I have kids these days that are 8, 9, 10 years old, and all they play is soccer. And every weekend they're off to a soccer tournament, and they don't really get to experience other sports. And
Yeah.
it's kind of a tough one for me.
That, and also when you've got more than one kid, and I say this with my younger son being on a quasi travel lacrosse team. It's only in June, but it's 3 weekend, or I'm sorry, July. It's 3 out of the 4 weekends. Actually, there might be 5 this year, but we're in Vermont, we're in Buffalo, and we're in Saratoga. Well, that either means one of us is taking him and the other is staying home with the other 2 kids, or we're all going. So, that I have to agree with that, because imagine being the other kids.
Yeah.
What do you get to do on the weekends? Oh, I got to travel with my brother's soccer team.
Yeah.
Okay. Was that better than, hanging out with your friends or doing a sport that you want to do? Of
Yeah.
course it's not,
Yeah.
But I am going to throw this on you because we skipped over this. Student-wise. Who is a student who surprised you with their change? Who they started as and who they become over time? or became over time?
So many of them. You know, what I focus in on in that aspect is the ones that came in as non-athletes and, you know, not super talented. Those are the ones that I really get proud of because it is hard. You know, we are not easy on them at all. So the ones that, you know, show that strength of character to push through and, you know, overcome, you know, whatever limitations that they have in terms of like being athletic. And, you know, some of them end up becoming athletes. Like I remember we had one kid come in that, you know, I try not to say specific names, but you can guess who he is. I had him at a school program at Holy Cross School, had never done a sport before, and somehow just through rapport, I got him to enroll and sign up for karate. Ended up training through getting his black belt. Once he got his black belt, he started joining every sport. He joined the football team. He joined every sport out there, and all of a sudden he became this athlete. And I was like, okay. And then he got self-confidence, and then all of a sudden he's, you know, very confident. He goes, I'm going to work for a NASCAR team. And I go, okay, do you know anything about cars? Knows nothing about cars. Goes to Alfred and does automotive technology, and then end up subsequently working for a NASCAR truck team. So, you know, students like that, you know, have kind of self-perceived limitations when they first come in, and then they're able to kind of overcome them and grow. Those are the ones I like. You know, right now we have, you know, tons of them, but there's this one kid that the entire adult team, we all talk about him. It's this kid, Aiden. He came in as a white belt, very small, skinny, unconfident in the adult class. Probably shouldn't have put him in the adult class, but he was like kind of on that edge. And at the time I had a smaller kids class, so we stuck him in the adult class. And I was like, I don't know what we're going to do with him. And and now he's a brown belt. And this kid has grown and just works hard. He's the type of kid that will push himself so hard that he, you know, like gets sick. You know, he just has this drive and he just works hard. And just to see his physical transformation, you know, and then turn into his, you know, confidence. It's just, those are the ones that are really special because you're like, you know what, this kid's going somewhere and we helped him. And this kid is going to be less of a target in school because we helped him. And, you know, those are the ones that stand out to me. But I mean, you know, we've been open, you know, the school opened when my twins were born. So it's very easy to remember. So it's 21 years. It was a month after my twins were born. So, you know, over the course of 21 years, I could probably give you 200 or 300 success stories in all different age groups. But, you know, I would say in general, it's those types of cases. And then specifically right now, you know, one of our teens named Aiden.
Yeah. I have a few that have really, I'll say, impressed me, but some that kind of surprised me. You know, we had sisters years ago who trained, and they were there all the time. And the oldest, you know, she was a happy kid. She was a good kid, but you could tell there wasn't a lot of confidence. And what I was talking about earlier, when you see the black belt go around their waist.
Are you speaking of the girl who one time we said gullibles written on the ceiling and she went like this?
I may or may not be talking about her. Yes, indeed. Or who said ambulance? Yes, that's her. Love her dearly, but yes. But seeing her on stage doing their team performance, there was a moment in that performance I can remember. I was behind the curtains and I happened to make eye contact with her, which not very common. You know, they're out there performing, but I made eye contact with her and there was a change. And that girl went from performing strong to I had not seen her perform like that afterwards. And then going forward, it was like this new sense of confidence in this girl, you know, and
that's a good point because I remember then she started doing like that DECA stuff in high school and she went to college and she was just a changed person when she hit high school. She was very confident.
And not that she was an unconfident
seriousness. There's like
there was a newfound confidence and a different kind of maturity, you know. I mean, she was still a teenage girl, but there was a different kind of maturity in certain regards. And I think that a lot of that had to do with, you know, overcoming. I mean, she got that bad concussion right before black belt graduation. And, you know, she had to deal with that. So that couldn't have been fun.
Still not happy about that one.
Yeah, no, neither am I. But I do have one more. I'd share two more, but I don't want to go over too much on time. But Tommy. I never would have thought. I mean, I always liked Tommy. Tommy's a good kid. Tommy a machine gun, you know. Loved having Tommy around. and when the family moved, it was sad. You know, we saw several of his siblings train with us, and they were really nice people. But when they moved to Florida, I just expected he'd pick up training at Dennis's school, you know, sister school, and you know, he'd just pursue his next black belt, and that was it. Not only did he continue training, he got his 4th degree black belt, and he became an instructor. And when he's in the area, because, you know, with work and he's going to school again, when he's in that area, he still stops in that dojo and trains. And I think he even helps teach sometimes. So to see him go from, you know, just another student who got their black belt to, and never talking to us about being an instructor, to moving down to the other end of the country to one of our sister locations. And then next thing you know, I'm getting a text message from him, you know, hey, guess what I'm doing? He's working for Dennis as a martial arts instructor. You know, that was cool. You know, because I mean, I've seen kids come up through and do it, but you know, that was different because he moved so far away and did it. You know, and it seemed to be out of the blue, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah. You know, that's one of the cool things, I think, is the habits of fitness and health that we instill in these kids. You know, he's one of the rare ones because a dojo is a very personal environment. So a lot of them, when they do graduate or they do move, some of them continue, like, find a new place to train, but sometimes it's a little tough because, you know, they grew up with us and in our environment, and every school is different, you know. But what they all do, and because we see them on Instagram, you know, they all are into fitness. You know, I saw one of our black belts yesterday did a Spartan race. You know, they all you know, do some sort of working out, and I see it with my kids too. You know, they may not train right now, but man, they work out. Like my daughters are in the gym 6 days a week. You know, I see it with all these kids. So that's probably one of the best things I can say is that we really develop lifelong habits of fitness because they do it for so long during their childhood. They may not do martial arts, but they go to the gym, they run, they do races, and that's a pretty cool legacy.
Well, how many of our black belts have we seen who were a giant pain in the butt trying to get them to do the run time?
Oh, yeah.
And then what happens? They get their black belt and they go on to run track and field, cross country. Like, meanwhile, we're over here, hey, we helped get you there. Come back, you know? So that is frustrating. But it's also cool to see that something that they were terrible at and they despised, we helped them get to a point where they wound up pursuing that too. So not only did they get their black belts with us, but what we helped them with allowed them to pursue another physical activity that they excelled at too. So, you know, as frustrating as it is, it's also nice to see that we help them get to that next level. Even if we didn't want to get them to the next level in that sport, it still helped them.
Yeah, definitely. All right, we're coming to the end. So these are going to be like a lightning round, just fast questions. Top training tip for adults.
Listen to your body.
Listen to your body. Good one. Funniest thing a student's ever said. You know who's coming.
I know. Okay.
Do you want me to go first? I have an easy one.
You go ahead.
I have an easy one. Years ago, we had a little dragon come in and came in with our grandparents. And I said, oh, you're with your grandma today? And she goes, yes, because my parents went to the hotel for the night. And I was like, oh, okay.
Okay, when we're off camera, you got to remind me who that is.
Everybody giggled about that one.
Okay.
But that's why we like little dragons, because I could tell you 100 things that they've said like that.
I don't think that I can share the Colin and Anthony one.
No.
Yeah, but the one with
Keep it PG.
Yes, the one with Eric I thought was pretty funny.
Yes.
Right before black belt candidate class that morning. He does not talk to anyone. He's just sitting there stretching quietly. Everyone's talking about... Very
stoic.
Yes, very stoic. And
great guy, but very stoic.
Yeah, super nice guy, but he's a quiet guy. But he's sitting there stretching, and all the other black belt candidates and the parents are talking, oh, you know, we should be bringing coffee and, you know, tea and hot chocolate. And someone said, yeah, we should bring donuts. He just looks up very nonchalantly, says... donuts are for fat people, and then went right back to his stretching. That was all he said.
That was probably the first thing and last thing they ever heard him say the entire cycle.
Yeah, and when I saw him several years ago, I asked him if he remembered that, and he got, you know, he didn't really laugh. He just would get that big like smile, like, you know. But yeah, he knew what I was talking about. I was like, oh wow, I haven't thought about it since then. I'm like, you may not have, but let me tell you, it has been an ongoing thing for a long time.
Legendary.
Yes, it is.
Yes. I'll go first on this one. I could tell a dozen of these as well, but most hilarious or unexpected things that's happened on the mat. And years ago, we had this little kid named Sammy, We're talking about the 3 laws of concentration: focus your eyes, focus your mind, and good body posture. And all the little dragons are sitting there, you know, with their feet crossed and tight, backs up straight, looking like little soldiers. And I look over, and Sammy had his pants off, and they were wrapped around his head. And I was like, oh.
Was that Nora's brother?
Yes, that was Sammy. Yes. Pants around his head as we're talking about focus, and that was what he was focused on.
I don't think I can beat that. I don't even know if I can try. That's, wow.
We took it in stride, though. We're just like, all right, Sam, you got to put your pants back on. We're not that kind of dojo.
As much as he drove me nuts, I will say that any time a certain student would
Oh, boy.
not be acting appropriately on the floor, I would let him know that he needed to go speak with you. And he would go speak to you, and the whole class would hear, I am not happy with the other sensei right now. He's lost all the best friend points.
And who gained all the best friend points?
You did every time.
I had
And
so
as
many
much-
best friend points.
As much as it drove me nuts, I can't help but share that story no matter where I am.
Yeah.
Because it's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
But yeah, you've got all the best friend points. What do you do with those?
I just banked them because you never know.
You should
You never know.
You should throw
I
a
don't think
Jubilee, maybe.
I don't think they expire.
No?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you should have a party.
Perhaps a
A
Jubilee.
best friends party. Yes, a Jubilee.
He used to call his birthday party the Jubilee. That's why.
Yes.
So, favorite martial artist?
Ernie Reyes Jr.
Ooh, very nice. I like Jackie Chan. I've just always I love his spirit that he brings to it. And he's funny. I'd love to. He's the one in the industry that, you know, I haven't met. Like Chuck Norris is great, and it was great to meet him and stuff. But Jackie Chan, that would have been a cool one to meet for me.
I think with Ernie, it was just he's only a little bit older than us.
Yeah.
They brought his team out to the East Coast several times for demonstrations and for classes. You know, so I got to meet him multiple times.
He's still a model of excellence.
Yeah.
Too. He still trains.
Dude's
Looks
over
great.
50 and he's doing 540s, 720s.
Yeah.
And I'm over here like, I haven't done that in 6-7 years.
My back hurts.
Yeah, my back. I jacked up my back. I'm not doing that.
Yeah. All right. Favorite MMA fighter?
George St. Pierre and Steve
Same.
Wonderboy Thompson.
Yeah. I'm
You gotta like Wonderboy.
Yeah,
He's just a
I do.
nice guy.
Oh, he's a great guy. I off air, I got to talk to somebody. Just did a seminar with him, or was training with him, or something.
With
They were,
Wonderboy?
yeah, they were going down to his school. Somebody I'm friends with was going to his school for a seminar, so we'll have to talk about.
But I think
that.
GSP, I don't care what anyone says. People try to, drill it into your heads that John Jones is the greatest of all time. I don't think John Jones is top 5 to me. I don't like him personally. I can agree that he's talented. But I think George St. Pierre, not only because of how good he was, but he also was a martial artist. He wasn't disrespectful. He didn't feel the need to do
He
disrespectful
was a great
trash
steward
talk.
of the sport.
Right. He would bow going in and out of the ring. He was always complimentary to his opponents before and after the fight. And I think that is something that is mostly lost in that world because we've taken the martial arts aspect out of it, and it's just become the mixed part of it.
Gotcha.
And I understand that that's what it's supposed to be, but I think George St. Pierre really sums up what it should be.
Yeah.
So
Anything we missed that you'd like to mention?
I don't think so. I
don't
think
think
that was
so?
pretty good.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
thanks for coming in.
Yeah.
Again, this is Master Jon Bidwell, and we appreciate the time.
Thank you.